They called me the family disappointment. Not to my face, of course. The Brennans were too refined for direct cruelty. Instead, it came wrapped in concern, delivered with sympathetic smiles, packaged as helpful advice that always reminded me I wasn't quite good enough. "Lauren, dear, perhaps next year you could contribute more than just the roles?" Patricia Brennan, my mother-in-law, stood at the head of her dining table, surveying the Thanksgiving spread like a general inspecting troops. "Vanessa has outdone herself with the turkey and all the sides. It must be exhausting for her to carry the load." 13 years. 13 Thanksgivings of this performance. I stood there holding my perfectly baked honey wheat rolls, made from scratch, not that anyone would acknowledge it, and smiled. "Of course, Patricia. Whatever helps." Across the table, Vanessa smirked. My sister-in-law wore a cream cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, her blonde hair styled in perfect waves, her manicured nails drumming against her wine glass. Patricia's golden child. The daughter who'd stayed close, who'd married well, who worked at the family company and made her mother proud. Unlike me. The accountant. The girl from the wrong side of town who'd somehow trapped their precious Daniel into marriage. "It's really no trouble, Mother," Vanessa said sweetly. "Lauren's so busy with her little accounting business. We can't expect her to manage a real Thanksgiving contribution." Little accounting business. I'd built a successful CPA firm from nothing, working 70-hour weeks while Daniel climbed the corporate ladder at Brennan Industries, the family manufacturing company that had been printing money for 3 generations. But to them, my work was a hobby, something to keep me occupied while the real adults handled important matters. Still, Patricia continued, one would think after 13 years, Lauren would feel more integrated into our family traditions. Vanessa learned all my recipes years ago. Because Vanessa had grown up with these traditions, I wanted to say. Because I'd married into this family at 25, an outsider who'd never quite learned the secret handshake. Because no matter how hard I tried, I would always be the girl who wasn't born a Brennan. But I didn't say any of that. I just smiled and took my seat at the table, in the spot that had been mine for over a decade, the chair farthest from Patricia, closest to the kitchen, positioned so I could jump up to serve or clear without disrupting the important people. Daniel sat next to his mother, barely acknowledging me. My husband had perfected the art of selective blindness where his family's treatment of me was concerned. When I brought it up, which I'd learned not to do, he'd say I was being too sensitive, that his mother meant well, that Vanessa was just joking. 13 years of gaslighting, and I'd almost started to believe it myself. The rest of the family filed in. Robert, Patricia's husband, who'd long ago surrendered any authority in this house. Daniel's cousins and their perfect families. Vanessa's husband, Christopher, who worked at Brennan Industries as CFO and spent most family gatherings on his phone, checking stock prices and quarterly reports. 23 people gathered to give thanks, and I was grateful for exactly none of them. Before we eat, Patricia announced, "I want to share some wonderful news. Brennan Industries just closed our biggest acquisition yet, a merger with Stellar Manufacturing that will triple our production capacity. And it's all thanks to Vanessa's brilliant negotiation skills." Applause erupted. Vanessa stood, accepting praise with practiced humility. I couldn't have done it without the support of this amazing family. That's what Brennans do, we build legacies together. I caught the emphasis on Brennans. Not Brennan wives. Not outsiders who married in. Blood family only. Vanessa has been instrumental in the company's growth, Patricia continued. In fact, Robert and I have decided that when we retire next year, Vanessa will take over as CEO. She's earned it. More applause. Daniel's face remained neutral, but I saw the tightness around his eyes. He'd been working at that company for 15 years, steadily climbing from junior analyst to VP of operations. But the crown was going to his little sister, because that's what Patricia wanted. "Congratulations, Vanessa," I said, raising my glass. My voice was steady, warm even. "Years of practice." She looked at me with something like pity. Thank you, Lauren. Not everyone is cut out for corporate leadership. Your little firm is perfect for someone with your skill level. There it was. The knife slipped between my ribs so smoothly that half the table didn't even notice. The other half pretended not to notice, because acknowledging the cruelty would require them to choose sides, and no one chose against Patricia Brennan. Have you ever been slowly erased? Not physically, but socially. Made smaller with each dismissal, each joke at your expense, each time your accomplishments are minimized while others are celebrated. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, and you're expected to smile through every single one. The dinner continued. Turkey was carved. Sides were passed. Conversation flowed around me: stock prices, vacation homes, country club gossip. I contributed when directly addressed, laughed at appropriate moments, played my role in the family theater. And all the while, I thought about the flash drive hidden in my purse. 3 months ago, I'd been at the Brennan Industries office dropping off lunch for Daniel. He'd forgotten it again. I spent half my life managing the details he couldn't be bothered with. While waiting in the lobby, I'd overheard Vanessa on her phone, speaking urgently about moving the money before the audit and covering the transfers. It should have meant nothing. Companies moved money all the time. But something in her tone, the urgency and fear, activated my professional instincts. I was an accountant. I knew what panic about audits sounded like. So I'd started digging. Carefully, quietly, using the access Daniel had given me to the company's financial systems years ago when I'd helped him prepare a presentation. He'd never revoked it, why would he? His wife wasn't important enough to be a threat. What I found made my blood run cold. Over the past 5 years, Vanessa had been systematically embezzling from Brennan Industries. Small amounts at first, 20,000 here, 30,000 there. Amounts that could be explained away as accounting errors or misclassified expenses. But as she'd gained more authority, the amounts had grown. In the past year alone, she'd stolen over $2 million. The money went to offshore accounts, routed through shell companies with deliberately confusing names. She'd been clever about it, spreading the theft across multiple departments, timing the transfers to coincide with legitimate business transactions. If I hadn't known what to look for, I might have missed it. But I didn't miss it. Because while Vanessa was brilliant at corporate politics and power plays, she wasn't brilliant at accounting. She'd left a trail, and I'd followed it all the way to her hidden fortune. The flash drive in my purse contained everything. Bank statements. Transfer records. Shell company registrations. Emails discussing the investments she was making with company resources. A complete, documented history of corporate fraud. I'd spent 3 months verifying every piece of evidence, building an airtight case. I'd called my brother James, who worked for the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, and had him review it anonymously. His assessment: federal charges, minimum 10 years in prison, complete disgrace. And I'd sat on it. Waiting. Planning. Because I'd learned something important in 13 years of marriage to this family: timing is everything. You don't react emotionally. You don't strike when you're angry. You wait for the perfect moment, the moment when your revelation will cause maximum impact. Like Thanksgiving. With the whole family gathered. With Vanessa at the height of her triumph, just announced as the future CEO. With Patricia basking in her daughter's success and my continued insignificance. "Lauren, dear, you're awfully quiet," Patricia said, pulling me from my thoughts. "Is everything all right? You look troubled." 23 pairs of eyes turned to me. The concern in Patricia's voice was about as genuine as her Botox smile. "I'm fine," I said. "Just thinking about how grateful I am for this family." "That's lovely," Patricia said. "We're grateful to have you too, of course. Even if you're not, well, even if you've chosen a different path than the rest of us. Even if I wasn't successful," she meant. "Even if I wasn't a real Brennan. Even if I was the disappointing daughter-in-law they tolerated out of obligation to Daniel." "Actually," I said, setting down my fork, I've been meaning to talk to everyone about something important. The table went quiet. People stopped eating, stopped talking. I had their attention, probably the first time in 13 years they'd all actually listened to me at once. "What is it?" Daniel asked, looking nervous. He hated when I drew attention at family gatherings. I pulled the flash drive from my purse and held it up. "I need to discuss some concerning financial irregularities I discovered at Brennan Industries." Vanessa's face went white. Just for a second, then she recovered, laughing. "Lauren, what are you talking about? You don't work for the company. You don't have access to our finances." "I do, actually. Daniel gave me system access years ago, remember? For that investor presentation. No one ever revoked it." I saw the moment Vanessa realized her mistake. She'd been so confident, so certain that I was too insignificant to be a threat, that she'd never checked whether I could access the very systems she'd been using to steal millions. "This is highly inappropriate," Patricia said sharply. "If you have concerns about the company, you should discuss them privately, not at Thanksgiving dinner." "I disagree," I said calmly. "Since the entire family is here, and since Vanessa was just announced as the future CEO, I think everyone deserves to know that she's been embezzling from the company for 5 years." The word embezzling hit like a bomb. Robert dropped his fork. Christopher's head snapped up from his phone. Daniel stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "That's a serious accusation," Patricia said, her voice ice. "You need to be very careful about making slanderous statements, Lauren." "It's not slander if it's true," I replied. "And I have documentation. Bank statements showing transfers from Brennan Industries accounts to offshore companies registered to Vanessa. Email correspondence discussing how to hide the transactions. 5 years of systematic theft totaling approximately $7 million. $7 million. The number hung in the air. Several people gasped. "This is insane," Vanessa said, but her voice shook. "You're making this up. You're jealous because I'm successful and you're not. I'm an accountant, Vanessa. I don't make things up. I document them." I held up the flash drive. "Everything is here. Every transaction, every transfer, every shell company. I've already had it reviewed by the FBI." That last part wasn't entirely true. James had reviewed it unofficially, but Vanessa didn't know that. Her face went from white to green. "Lauren, what the hell are you doing?" Daniel hissed. "Protecting your family's company," I said. "Protecting your inheritance. Because while you've all been treating me like I'm worthless, I've been doing my job. I'm an accountant. I notice when numbers don't add up." "Christopher," Patricia said sharply, turning to Vanessa's husband, "you're the CFO. Did you know about any of this?" Christopher looked genuinely shocked. "No. If this is real, Vanessa was hiding it from me too." "It's not real," Vanessa shouted. "She's lying. She's trying to ruin me because she's always been jealous." "Then let's verify it," I said. "I have everything on this drive. We can go through it right now, if you'd like. Or we can call the company's auditors, have them review the accounts. I'm confident in my findings." The room erupted. People talking over each other, demanding answers, looking between Vanessa and me with confusion and horror. Patricia tried to regain control, but for once, her authority had been undermined. Robert stood up, his face red. "Vanessa. Tell me the truth. Did you steal from the company?" "Daddy, no, I would never." "Tell me the truth." I'd never heard Robert yell before. 13 years in this family, and I'd never seen him override Patricia, never seen him assert himself. But his company, his legacy, his life's work, that was worth fighting for. Vanessa's face crumpled. And in that moment, everyone saw the truth. "I was going to pay it back," she whispered. "It was just temporary. I had some investments that went bad, and I needed $7 million, I said quietly. "That's not a temporary loan. That's systematic, calculated theft. Patricia looked like she'd been struck. Her golden daughter, her perfect Vanessa, exposed as a criminal in front of the entire family. At Thanksgiving dinner. The irony was almost too perfect. How could you? Patricia breathed. How could I? Vanessa's shock was morphing into anger now, the cornered animal rage of someone with nothing left to lose. You know how. You set impossible standards, made me compete with Daniel constantly, told me I had to be perfect to deserve the CEO position. I needed money for the lifestyle you expected, the house, the cars, the clothes. Christopher's salary wasn't enough, and I couldn't ask you for help because that would mean admitting I was failing. So you stole from us? Robert's voice broke. I was going to replace it. The company's profitable, I thought no one would notice. But someone did notice, I said. Because unlike everyone in this family, I actually paid attention to details instead of just appearances. Patricia turned to me, and for the first time in 13 years, I saw something other than condescension in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or respect. What happens now? That depends, I said. The evidence is documented. The FBI agent I consulted said this is clear-cut federal fraud. Vanessa would face criminal charges, prison time. The company would face an investigation. The scandal would destroy Brennan Industries' reputation. I let that sink in. Everything they'd built, everything they valued, their name, their legacy, their social standing, all of it would collapse. Or, I continued, we can handle this internally. Vanessa repays every dollar she stole, with interest. She resigns from the company immediately and permanently. The family agrees to external auditing oversight to prevent this from ever happening again. And Vanessa gets therapy and stays out of finance forever. That's generous, James's voice came from behind me. I turned to see my brother standing in the doorway. I'd texted him earlier, told him to arrive for dessert. His FBI credentials were visible on his belt. More generous than she deserves. The Brennans stared at him with horror. An FBI agent, in their home, at their Thanksgiving dinner. This was their worst nightmare, the collapse of their carefully maintained image. Of course, James continued, if the family doesn't cooperate, my office would be very interested in this case. Corporate fraud at this scale rarely goes unpunished. We'll cooperate, Robert said immediately. Vanessa will repay everything. She'll resign. Whatever it takes. Patricia said nothing. She just stared at Vanessa with something like disgust, watching her perfect daughter crumble. And Vanessa looked at me with pure hatred. You've destroyed me. No, I said calmly. You destroyed yourself. I just showed everyone what you'd been hiding. Thanksgiving dinner dissolved into chaos. Vanessa fled to the bathroom, sobbing. Christopher sat in stunned silence, probably calculating how much of their shared assets he could protect in the inevitable divorce. Patricia retreated to the kitchen, her perfect hostess facade finally cracking. The extended family members made awkward excuses and left early, desperate to escape the scandal they'd just witnessed, and I sat at that table, in my usual insignificant spot, feeling more powerful than I'd ever felt in my life. Lauren. Daniel's voice was quiet, careful. Can we talk? Privately? I followed him to Robert's study. James gave me a small nod as I passed. He'd stay in the dining room, his presence a silent reminder that this was now an official matter, whether the Brennans liked it or not. Daniel closed the study door and turned to face me. What the hell was that? That was me protecting your family's company from a thief. By humiliating us at Thanksgiving? In front of everyone? I laughed, actually laughed. Humiliation? Daniel, your sister stole $7 million. I just exposed it. Or would you have preferred I let her keep stealing until she bankrupted the company your grandfather built? You could have come to me first. To my parents. We could have handled this quietly. Like you've handled everything else? By letting your mother control every decision? By letting Vanessa do whatever she wants? By letting them treat me like garbage for 13 years? He flinched. They don't treat you like garbage. Don't they? I stepped closer. Tell me, Daniel. When was the last time your mother said something genuinely kind to me? When was the last time Vanessa didn't include a barb in her compliments? When was the last time you defended me when they diminished my work, my accomplishments, my existence? He couldn't answer. Because he knew I was right. I love you, he said finally. But you've just declared war on my family. No, I corrected. I saved your family. And if you can't see the difference, that tells me everything I need to know about our marriage. I walked out of the study. In the dining room, James was speaking with Robert, presumably going over the timeline for Vanessa's repayment and resignation. Patricia stood by the window, staring out at the darkening sky. She turned when she heard me. You must be very proud of yourself. I'm proud that I did the right thing, yes. The right thing would have been discretion. Family loyalty. Not this public execution. Family loyalty? I kept my voice even, professional. Patricia, your daughter committed a federal crime. She stole millions from a company that bears your name. And you're angry at me for exposing it? I'm angry that you chose the worst possible moment. That you humiliated us in front of the entire family. That you brought the FBI into our home. My brother, I clarified. Who I consulted because I wanted to make sure I had the facts right before accusing anyone of a serious crime. Would you have preferred I was wrong? She said nothing. Here's what I think, I continued. I think you're angry because I stopped being invisible. For 13 years, I played the role you wanted, the quiet, insignificant daughter-in-law who stayed in her lane. I let you dismiss me, belittle me, treat me like I wasn't good enough for your family. And I stayed quiet because I loved Daniel and I wanted to keep the peace. But the truth is, Patricia, I was always good enough. Better than good enough. I built a successful business while managing your son's life. I navigated your constant criticism with grace. And when your golden daughter turned out to be a criminal, I was the one who caught it. Me. The little accountant with the little firm who apparently isn't cut out for real work. Patricia's face was stone, but I saw the muscles in her jaw tighten. So yes, I said. I chose Thanksgiving. I chose the public moment. Because after 13 years of being made to feel small, I wanted you all to see exactly who I am. And who Vanessa really is. You've destroyed her, Patricia said quietly. She destroyed herself. I just refused to help you cover it up. James appeared in the doorway. Lauren, we should go. I'll follow up with Robert tomorrow about the formal arrangements. I nodded, grabbed my coat, and walked toward the door. Daniel stood in the hallway, looking lost and broken. Part of me, the part that had loved him for 15 years, wanted to comfort him. But the stronger part, the part that had finally woken up, knew that comforting him would mean diminishing myself again. I'll be staying at a hotel tonight, I said. We can talk in a few days, once everyone's calmed down. Are you leaving me? His voice cracked. I don't know yet. But I know I can't keep being the person I was in this marriage. So you need to decide if you can accept the person I actually am. I left him standing there and walked out of the Brennan family estate. James drove me to a nearby hotel, one of those boutique places with minimalist decor and excellent room service. That was badass, he said as we pulled into the parking lot. I've never seen you like that. I've never been like that. Not with them. Why now? I thought about it. Because I finally realized I had nothing to lose. They already saw me as worthless. The only person whose opinion mattered was mine, and I was tired of thinking they were right about me. James smiled. For what it's worth, I've always known you were the smartest person in that family. Took you long enough to figure it out. Better late than never. He hugged me goodbye, promised to handle the FBI consultation professionally, and left me alone in a hotel room that felt more peaceful than my own house had in years. I ordered room service, took a long bath, and slept for 10 hours straight. The next 3 weeks were a controlled explosion. Vanessa formally resigned from Brennan Industries. The family hired a forensic accounting firm, not mine, though Robert asked, and I declined, to verify every transaction I'd documented. They found everything I'd found, plus an additional $1 million Vanessa had hidden in cryptocurrency. $8 million total. She'd stolen $8 million from her own family. The repayment plan was brutal. Vanessa and Christopher had to sell their house, their vacation property, her jewelry, his vintage car collection. Even with liquidating everything, they could only cover about $5 million. The remaining $3 million would come from a structured repayment plan that would take them 15 years to complete. Patricia aged 10 years and 3 weeks. Her perfect daughter, her planned successor, exposed as a fraud and a thief. The family's social standing took a hit, gossip spread quickly in their circles, and several business relationships became strained, but Brennan Industries survived. With proper oversight and without Vanessa draining resources, the company actually stabilized. Robert, forced to step up without Patricia's interference, proved to be a more capable leader than anyone expected. And Daniel was a mess. He called me every day for the first week. Apologizing, explaining, begging me to come home. I listened but didn't commit. I needed space to figure out who I was outside of being a Brennan wife. Then one day, he showed up at my hotel room unannounced. I fired Mother, he said when I opened the door. I blinked. What? From the company? Well, Dad did. But I pushed for it. She was listed as a senior advisor, taking a salary for essentially showing up to board meetings and controlling decisions behind the scenes. I told Dad she had to go if we were going to rebuild trust. I led him into the room. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, thinner than I'd ever seen him. I also told her she owed you an apology, he continued. For 13 years of treating you like you weren't good enough. She refused, said she'd done nothing wrong. So I told her that until she could acknowledge how she'd behaved, I wouldn't be attending any family functions. Daniel, let me finish. He took a shaky breath. You were right. About everything. I let them treat you terribly. I told myself it was just their way, that you were being too sensitive, that keeping the peace was more important than standing up for my wife. But watching you walk out that door, I realized I'd been choosing them over you for our entire marriage. Tears rolled down his face. I don't blame you if you want a divorce. I don't blame you for any of this. You did what I should have done years ago, you protected our family, even when that family treated you like an outsider. I sat down on the bed, processing. Why didn't you ever defend me? Because I was a coward, he said simply. Because standing up to Mother meant conflict, and I'd spent my whole life avoiding conflict with her. Because it was easier to let you absorb her cruelty than to acknowledge it existed. That's not good enough. I know. But I'm trying to be different now. I've started therapy. I've set boundaries with Mother, real ones. I told Vanessa she's dead to me until she takes full responsibility for what she did. I'm trying to become the man you deserved to marry 13 years ago. I looked at my husband, really looked at him, and saw something I hadn't seen in years, genuine remorse. Not the performative apologies he'd given before, but real understanding of how deeply he'd failed me. I don't know if we can fix this, I said honestly. 13 years of damage doesn't heal overnight. I know. But will you give me a chance to try? I thought about it. About the man I'd fallen in love with before his family's toxicity had infected our marriage. About the life we could have if he actually changed. About whether I even wanted that life anymore. Couples therapy, I said finally. Weekly sessions. And you need to continue your individual therapy. And I need to see actual change, not just promises. Done. Anything. And I'm not going to any Brennan family events unless Patricia apologizes to me. Sincerely. In private. No witnesses, no performance. That might take a while. Then it takes a while. I'm not negotiating on this, Daniel. I spent 13 years accepting less than I deserved. I won't do it anymore. He nodded. What about the company? Dad wants to make you an official consultant. Pay you properly for preventing a disaster. I'll consider it. After we establish what my actual role and authority would be. I won't be dismissed or undermined. You won't be. I promise. Your promises don't mean much to me right now, I said bluntly. Show me through actions. Prove you've changed. Then we'll see. 6 months later, I was back in the Brennan family home. But everything was different. Patricia had finally, after months of prodding from Robert and ultimatums from Daniel, agreed to meet with me. We sat in her pristine living room, tension thick enough to cut. I owe you an apology, she said stiffly. The words clearly hurt her to say. I treated you poorly for many years. I made assumptions about your worth based on where you came from rather than who you are. And I failed to see that you were actually the strongest member of this family. It wasn't a perfect apology. It lacked the emotional depth I might have wanted. But it was honest, and coming from Patricia Brennan, that was significant. Thank you, I said. I accept your apology. I don't expect us to be close, she continued. But I hope we can be civil. For Daniel's sake, and for the family's sake. Civil works for me. We would never be friends. We would probably never even really like each other. But we could coexist, and that was enough. Daniel and I were still in therapy, still rebuilding. Some days were good. Some days I wondered if we'd make it. But he was trying, genuinely trying, and that counted for something. I'd accepted the consulting position at Brennan Industries, with a generous salary and clear authority over financial oversight. Robert had proven to be surprisingly easy to work with, and with Vanessa gone, the company's culture was slowly improving. My own firm was thriving. Turns out, exposing a major embezzlement scheme is excellent publicity. My client list had tripled, and I'd hired 3 new accountants to handle the demand. And Vanessa? I heard she was working as a hostess at a restaurant in Seattle, rebuilding her life from scratch. Christopher had divorced her within weeks of the revelation. She'd lost everything, her career, her marriage, her family's respect, her social standing. Sometimes I felt bad about that. But mostly, I remembered $7 million. $8 million. I remembered years of being called mediocre, insignificant, not good enough. I remembered being erased from my own family. And I felt nothing but satisfaction. The next Thanksgiving, I hosted. Daniel and I had bought a new house, smaller than the Brennan estate, but ours, purchased with money we'd earned, decorated to our taste. We invited my family, Daniel's father, a few close friends. No Patricia. No Vanessa. No toxic energy. As I put the turkey in the oven, a recipe I'd chosen myself, not Patricia's traditional version, my brother appeared in the kitchen doorway. You look happy, James observed. I am happy. For the first time in 13 years, I'm actually happy. Because you destroyed Vanessa? Because I stopped letting them make me feel small, I corrected. The Vanessa thing was just the catalyst. The real change was remembering who I was before I spent over a decade trying to earn approval from people who were never going to give it. You always were a badass, he said. They just didn't recognize it. Their loss. Daniel appeared, wrapping his arms around me from behind. Need help with anything? I've got it. But you can set the table. On it. He kissed my cheek and left. James raised an eyebrow. You two seem better. We are. Slowly. He's actually standing up to his mother now, which is a minor miracle. And I'm not accepting being treated as less than. It's amazing what happens when you have actual boundaries. Think you'll make it? I think we have a chance. But if we don't, I'll be okay. That's the difference now, I know I'll be okay either way. The doorbell rang. Guests arriving, bringing wine and side dishes and laughter. My house filled with people who actually valued me, who saw me, who treated me like I mattered. Because I did matter. I always had. The Brennans just hadn't been paying attention. As I watched my friends and family gather in my home, I thought about last Thanksgiving. About sitting at that table, feeling invisible, swallowing my anger and hurt. About the flash drive in my purse and the decision to finally stop being silent. People always ask, don't you regret how you handled it? Wasn't it cruel to expose Vanessa publicly? The answer is no. Not even a little bit. Because Vanessa had been cruel to me for 13 years. Patricia had been cruel. And they'd done it with smiles, with sweet voices, with the kind of passive-aggressive warfare that leaves no visible scars but damages you just as deeply. I'd simply held up a mirror and made them see what they really were. That's not revenge. That's accountability. And if the Brennan family reputation took a hit, if Patricia's golden daughter fell from grace, if their carefully constructed image cracked open to reveal the rot underneath, well, that was on them. I just refused to keep pretending the rot didn't exist. The turkey timer went off. I pulled the bird from the oven, golden and perfect, and called everyone to the table. My table. In my house. With people who loved me for exactly who I was. Danielle stood up to give a toast. I'm thankful for a lot of things this year. But mostly, I'm thankful for my wife, who had the courage to do what was right even when it was hard. Who saved my family's company and possibly my family itself. Who reminded me what integrity actually looks like. He looked at me with genuine love, genuine respect. Lauren, you are the strongest person I know. And I'm spending the rest of my life trying to deserve you. People clinked glasses. My brother squeezed my shoulder. Daniel sat down and took my hand. And I realized something profound. I wasn't the family disappointment. I never had been. I was the one who'd been strong enough to tell the truth when everyone else wanted to hide it. The one who'd built something real while they'd built facades. The one who'd survived their cruelty and come out stronger. The disappointment wasn't me. It was them, for not recognizing what they had, for not valuing what I contributed, for not seeing that the quiet daughter-in-law was actually the most dangerous person in the room. Because quiet people notice things. We watch, we listen, we document. And when we finally speak, we have receipts. Patricia Brennan had spent 13 years teaching me that I didn't belong in her family. In the end, she was right, I didn't belong there. I belonged somewhere better. Somewhere I was valued. Respected. Seen. And if I'd had to burn down her perfect Thanksgiving to find that place, to remember my own worth, to reclaim my power? Well, that wasn't the disaster she thought it was. That was liberation.